Hello everyone, welcome to the Evil Empire. I'm your host, Evil Empire, and this week's feature is Yorion Pact. So this is a Mardu enchantments deck, with the exception of I think about 2 cards in the main deck, and then obviously a bunch of lands. This is essentially a standard deck. I mean, this is basically a standard Mardu enchantments deck that we put Wrath of God and Demonic Pact in. And then in addition to those 2 main deck cards of Demonic Pact and Wrath of God, it's just kind of the mana base. And everything else is from standard, so just give you an idea of kind of, the power level of standard pretty high. And I don't think this deck in particular is all that competitive, really. This is just kind of a meme deck that I'm using to celebrate getting to Mythic last week during the January 21 season. That, I think, sort of is... give you a good impression of how historic and standard are in a lot of ways on the same power level, some aspects. Obviously the jumpstart cards and some of the other Kaladesh Remastered Amonkhet cards and other things that have been put into the historic format certainly make a difference, but overall historic not that much different from standard at this point, and just kind of where all the old broken standard decks are going to go to live and hang out. So we'll see how things expand over time, but anyway, this deck in particular is looking to take advantage of a couple of different engines. So the engine that I think is perhaps the most questionable is Showdown of the Skulls. I don't know that we are really supposed to be running Showdown in this kind of not so aggressive build. But one thing you can do with Showdown, it does curve nicely into Yorion. So being able to blink it, get back all those the next top 4 cards of your library into exile, and be able to play those again the following turn is a pretty huge swing. So for one thing, if we do get a chance to draw Yorion and curve the one into the other, it's okay. And we may even be able to play some of our less expensive enchantments or other spells to be able to trigger the second and third chapters on Showdown. So it's not even a total waste, I don't think in this deck. And the card draw is really crucial. I think you need in the 80 card deck, along with kind of our base package of Mazemind Tome and Treacherous Blessing, which technically you could play in standard, although I don't think Treacherous Blessing has seen much play since it kind of broke through with Doom Foretold earlier in the Theros Beyond Death standard. But Mazemind Tome certainly sees a lot of play. The 2 of those are our package for card draw there. Then we also get a little bit of a boost later in the game on 4 mana if we're not able to play a Pact, a Foretold, or wipe the board with a Wrath. We're able to hit that Scald, and it doesn't maybe really Scalds doesn't really belong in a control deck, I don't think, maybe, but it works okay here because basically this is a Mardu control deck, right? So we have that as one of the engines. Doom Foretold, obviously the other engine. This one's a little bit tricky to pull off in Historic because so many decks try to go so wide, like Elves and Goblins. So maybe not the exact one that you want, but can get rid of troublesome permanents pretty nicely. Things like artifacts, enchantments that normally these colors wouldn't be able to touch too well. We can get stuff with that, Doom Foretold. A couple of ECD, 1 Doom Scar to act as kind of a 5th Wrath of God. Shepherd of the Flock is going to let us pick up some of our enchantments, our sagas, and maybe even pick up our Yorion to just have it again for the next turn. If let's say our opponent goes to use some point removal on Yorion, just Shepherd can act as kind of a counterspell in that instance, where you're just going to 1 white and pick up your Yorion and basically blank their removal, like whatever they might have. So that's kind of the main idea for the deck. Valky is also here as sort of a finisher, but can be an early game play that we use to get momentum and to get ourselves kind of set up with lands. And the ones I'm set up with lands in the deck, it really is a good thing to cast on 7. Tibalt is a totally game-breaking play. Even in Historic, it has incredible potential. And one of the things I enjoyed about this particular deck, as you'll see, is Tibalt's ability to cast things not just when Tibalt is on the battlefield, but because you get an emblem, you can cast the cards you exile with Tibalt even when Tibalt's gone. So say they get rid of Tibalt, you want to play one of the cards that you exile, go ahead, you got that emblem, So I think the emblem aspect of this Planeswalker at 7 mana is one of the things that makes it super strong. And I think it can be a player in Historic, maybe more of a role player, like kind of a Grixis control curveball. Maybe something you bring in against creature decks or what have you, but You know, Grixis Control, not the greatest deck in Historic, to be honest with you. It doesn't see a ton of play anyway. I don't think this is really going to revitalize the archetype, but I think Valky Tybalt can maybe make some new archetypes in Historic, but it's going to be pretty tough to break in, to be honest with you, so we'll see. But it is a card that I wanted to try out as a 4 of here, and that's really the whole outline of the deck. One thing I could say for certain that I think you should cut if you plan on playing this deck seriously is you should probably get rid of Ruinous Ultimatum. This was just something that I wanted to try to cast against maybe like one of those colorless decks, or like the colorless X decks. You know, some of them do like colorless black or that kind of thing. So wasn't able to do that. I think it's just a really bad early game draw, and does have some late game potential, but only against certain decks. And you're already packing enough Wraths between these 5 cards that you should be all right. So yeah, that's kind of the plan, is just control the board, Wrath things, and then go for Omen of the Sun, go for your finishing cards like Yorion, and maybe even use Showdown of the Skulls to pump up your 1/1 tokens from the Omen, or maybe drop a counter or 2 on Yorion while you're at it. But yeah, that's kind of the deck. Definitely going to be harder to abuse the 2nd and 3rd chapters because we're not really an aggro deck. We may not have creatures for those. We may just want it for the card draw, but you know, the card draw is pretty sweet. Drawing 4 cards for 4 mana. Also get a little enchantment that we might be able to sacrifice for Doom Foretold. Not a bad deal overall. So that's what we're working with, and I'll say one thing that definitely happened over time is the number of Showdowns went up. Showdown of the Skalds went up in this deck. The number of Shepherd of the Flock went down, because it's just not a very effective card at what it does. It's kind of very basic utility. Yeah, it costs 1 mana, but can't always get the job done exactly the way you want it. And the mana base, as you can see, is just kind of a bunch of Mardu lands, and you know, obviously 4 Triumph because we're a control deck, so we like the cycling late game. A couple of pathways, but mostly just running with the shocks and the checks. 1 Castle Locthwain. So that's the deck. We're going to take it to Mythic rank. This was recorded previously during the weekend of February well, I guess it would have been January 31 and 30 when I recorded this during the last Mythic season. So this was kind of the last day of the last season, and my exploits on the Mythic ladder will be seen by you here for the first time, debuting as a Mythic player, so it feels kind of cool. Anyway, enjoy. Here's some Mythic ladder play with Yorion Pact. Alright, so before we get to the game, a quick check-in on my rank from last season. This is where I topped out at 92% Mythic, which was the first time I got to Mythic, and was really a huge thrill. Alright, so first game in Mythic, here we go. 3 lands, Oath of Kaya, Wrath of God, Yorion, Kroxa. Seems like a pretty keepable hand. You really want to look for Wraths in your opener, I think, with any control deck that you're playing in Best of 1. It's not that Wraths are really so great, but it's just you kind of need them in the Best of 1 format. Alright, so opponent goes Swamp, Pass, and I'm going to turn to Kroxa. So make them discard a card. See what they put in the yard here. Okay, looks like a Paradox Engine. Black Paradox Engine deck. Okay, that's a new one for me. Alright, so 3 mana. It's going to enter tapped instead, so I'll just leave it on 2. Okay, so they're going to Palladium Mirror, and that's an easy target for Oath of Kaya. Or maybe a Doom Foretold, but yeah, I think Oath of Kaya is probably the best use of our cards here. It's not the most efficient use of mana, but we'll hang on to the Doom Foretold for just a sec. Alright, so opponent's now on 4, Bonder's Enclave, Mystic Forge. See, now's a good time for a Doom Foretold. We have the Oath of Kaya to be able to sack and play back, so looks good. We'll get rid of their Mystic Forge on their turn. Alright, so Doom Foretold goes off on the upkeep. They are going to pay 1 life to exile the top card of their library and tap, get a little use out of it. Sacrifice the Mythic Forge. Mystic Forge, rather. 5 mana for the opponent. One of those black. Crystalline Giant. 3/3 with hexproof. Oh, okay. Well, our Doom Foretold does not care too much about hexproof. Scalds, get ahead on cards a little bit. Plays the Vitriome, pass. Okay, so Doom Foretold triggers. They sacrifice Crystalline Giant. The opponent now plays their 6 mana. Palladium Mirror again. Still not very good here, this Palladium Mirror. Still doesn't feel very good. So, they pass back the turn. Doom Foretold goes off on our upkeep. Gonna resolve the trigger and sack Scalds, although probably could have just flashed in Omen there, but... So, land for the turn in the form of basic plains, it looks like. Yeah. So then Oath of Kaya, hold up Omen of the Sun, do it like that. Keep the Doom Foretold rolling, get that engine pumping. And hopefully the opponent just plays out 1 permanent each turn. Okay, so, yeah. This, now we're going to have to sack the Doom Foretold. We'll draw a card, make a knight, pick up a couple of life points, and now the opponent's going to steal Overseer. Okay. Doesn't seem very good here. Okay, Omen of the Sun before their combat step. Are they gonna sack their scavenger grounds here? That wouldn't make very much sense. Okay, yeah, they're gonna do it. Still lose the crossfair. Minor setback, not too big of a deal. Alright, Shepherd, pretty good. Yorion, a lot better. So, gonna Yorion and hold up the Shepherd in case they try to play Extinction Event on the Yorion, for example. So just hold up Shepherd after Yorion, and that way the opponent kind of has to hit evens when they, or if they, draw their exile wipe, the Extinction Event. So it comes back in. Oath of Kaya takes care of the Steel Overseer, make a couple more 1/1s, hold up the Shepherd, and pass. Looking pretty good here. Palladium Mirror. Yeah, Mirror looking pretty mopey here. Especially in the face of Yorion. Doom Foretold. The first attack, why not? See what they block. Probably the 1/1, right? That makes sense. Just eat a 1/1, yeah. Fine. That's that. And get in for a bunch of damage on the opponent. Get in for what, like 9? Doom Foretold and be able to hold up to a Shepherd of the Flock. Whatever the adventure side of it's called. That's the game. So, Fable Passage Plains is not great, but we have some stuff to do on 2 mana. We can Foretell, we could play the Shepherd, the creature side. So, it's keepable, we'll do it. Take the plunge. Okay, so mono blue. This is going to be tricky. Trying to negotiate these counterspells with our tap out deck. Alright, so Fable Passage, crack it for Swamp. Have the Plains and the Swamp. So we've got our 2 most important colors of mana. I'm just going to foretell some Doomscar here. Put that off to the side in case we want it later. Curious Obsession, attack you for 2. Down to 17 for me, and opponent draws a card. Pass with 2 up. Yeah, okay. That's why Ruinous Ultimatum. That's why you don't want Ruinous Ultimatum in this deck. Would really rather that it just be a land there, right? So try Valky, get it countered. Pass it back, feeling very sad, feeling like we're pretty low to win the game. Yeah, okay, so Spectral Sailor now draws 2 cards every time it connects because of the 2 auras. And they're going to pass with 3 mana up. What a surprise, right? Okay, Maze Mind Tome. Anything? Nah, okay. Alright. Just kidding, I didn't want to play any cards anyway, it's fine. Just kidding, opponent. So, Spectral Sailor connects, I go to 13, and they draw 2. This time 4 mana up. Swamp is the draw, needed it last turn. Oath of Kaya gets countered. No? Oh, they're gonna, okay, sure. Counter the ability with the Siren Storm Tamer, yeah, that's fine. This one was over anyway. Yeah, okay. My old nemesis, Mono Blue. Alright, yeah, we have all the colors we need. 3 lands, 4 spells. One of those spells draws cards in Treacherous Blessing, so feels pretty good. Feels like a keeper. So I'm going to lead on Savai Trione tapped. Okay. Opponent leads on Mountain. Alright, so Burn or Goblins. Could be Gruul. I mean, it could be, yeah, it could be Gruul aggro as well. See if they're going to tip their deck at all here. What they're playing. Opponent having a think. Having a long, hard think on 1 mana. Are they pondering whether or not I have a kill spell, like a removal spell like Fatal Push? Okay, so they eventually decide Skirk Prospector is the way to go. And I'm going to go ahead and play Kroxa after playing Swamp. Force the opponent to discard a card. The opponent discards what? Okay, another Prospector? Sure. Okay, so opponent untaps on 1 mana. They gotta have the land here, right? There it is. Even if they have to pay for 3 life for it. Wily Goblin makes the treasure. Swing in for 1. Big game. Oh yeah, big game on that Skirk Prospector hitting for 1. Got me on that sweet, sweet 10-turn clock. So I draw Maze Mind Tome for the turn. But it's kind of a question of do I do the Tome or the Treacherous Blessing. I'm kind of leaning toward Treacherous Blessing. It's just more efficient. And kind of accomplishes the same thing as Maze Mind here. Just trying to hit land drop next turn, pretty much. Alright, so draw 3. Alright, Doomscar, Shrine, the Sky Nomad, the Sky Noodle. Sky Noodle's good, but we
Need 1 more mana to be able to play it. Opponent plays Goblin Chieftain, attacks for 6. Alright, so Godless Shrine untapped, pay the 2, go to 9. Wrath of God, pay another life because of Treacherous Blessing. Down to 8. So 3 for 1 trade, 3 for 1 them. Another sweeper for next turn if I need it. Or I can go with the Pact. Alright, looks like the Pact is going to be the choice here. Just maybe go like Godless Shrine untapped and then into the Pact of demonic nature. Demonical Pact, perhaps. No? Okay, so gonna get Treacherous Blessing out of here. Just don't want to pay any more life for my spells. Go down to 5 in the process, then Demonic Pact. ECD in case they have anything big. Opponent having a think. Goblin Matron. Gonna go get the Mux. Muxus Goblin Grandee is probably gonna be the pickup. Usually what they get, unless they need something specific like a Skirk Prospector. Oh, a Chieftain. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Alright, so what option do I choose here? Yeah, let's just take away half their hand. Because that seems fine. Target opponent discards 2 cards. They're gonna put the Chieftain and the Phyrexian Tower, which was a dead card anyway, because of the legendary land. Put both of those into the graveyard. 2 cards in hand for the opponent. I'm gonna untap with 5, draw a land for the turn, so I have access to 6 total. Saving Yorion until it gets closer to the end of the Demonic Pact. We'll blink it after, you know, we've gotten our use out of it. Every part of the buffalo, as I say. Bright Climb Pathway, putting it down on Bright Climb side, the white side. 4 mana remaining. I'm going to pass through combat here, but before I end the turn, I'm going to foretell. And leave up just enough mana for drawing a card with Maze Mind. Alright, so opponent, access to a lot of mana here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they've got Muxus mana. There it is. Alright, Muxus, can you just one time not hit Haste Creature? One time. Hey, that's like one of the worst Muxus hits I've ever seen. I'm gonna choose to deal 4, gain 4. Just get rid of the Muxus problem, I think. No, draw 2 cards. Okay, Nightmare's pretty good. Valky's really good, but we can't play him until next turn. Otherwise, it would be sweet. So let's just Doomscar all this away. This nonsense needs to go. 2 cards in hand for opponent, 5 cards in hand for myself. Question, do I hold up the Maze Mind activation, or do I just play out the Nightmare to get something for the next turn? Maybe play the Blessing. Right, looks like I'm going to choose to draw with the Maze Mind Tome. Alright, so opponent now puts down another land. This time it's Castle Embereth. Wily Goblin, looking very mopey, looking very sad, like a 1/1 for 2. 3 mana remains, but there's not much to do with it. So Chieftain. That's the other card, and now they're going to come in and put me down to 1. So attack for 4, go to 1. Hold the baby. Hold the baby. Just gotta hold. Get Valky out there. I'm doing the good work of the. Oh, I got a blank demonic pact, don't I? Ah, Valky might have to wait a turn. It's really annoying, but. So, upkeep, scry. Just trying to find more land. Find it. Alright, cool. We'll draw that land. That land feels pretty good to draw. So, 7 now. About to go to 8. What's it gonna be? Well, I don't want to lose the game, so probably this. To avoid losing the game for Demonic Pact, might as well flicker Maze Mind while I'm at it. Get some more usage out of it. Blink the counters off the Maze Mind. Blink Demonic Pact back. Alright, so Elspeth's Nightmare. I'll play it to get rid of the Wily Goblin. And there that goes. Pact and Maze Mind Tome are back, but Maze Mind Tome has lost its counters. Opponent drew land for a turn, and it's going to cash in their Mind Stone here for a card. So draw a card off Mind Stone. What'd they get? What's going to save them here? A War Chief. No. Yeah, individual card quality not high in this deck, so when they're top decking like this, it's just... it's not a good look. They don't have very many like super powerful cards in the deck, so. I'll tell you what, I don't really like them having haste, so I'm just gonna get rid of the War Chief. No haste allowed. That's how I feel. Okay, so no value there. However, much value off the Tybalt. So play Tybalt Cosmic Imposter.
So you've seen through my
get a couple of cards off of it.
You can handle a little pain.
The Sacred Foundry play it untapped. They run haste creatures in the deck, but it's probably worth it to clock them a little. And Valky's at 7, so it's not like he's super in danger of getting picked off by a haster. Opponent getting to their thinking spot. Having a good think. Think. Your thoughtful spot there, opponent. Find your thoughtful spot. Just staring me down. Alright, so here comes the pass back. Not sure if they could even be holding up anything. I don't think there's anything they could hold up. But we're just going to make them discard anyway. See what it is at least. That'll be fun. Oh, it was a Skirk Prospector? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Now remember, with Tybalt's Emblem, I can play these cards whether I have Tybalt or not. Obviously I have him here still, but even if Tybalt did go the way of the dinosaurs, there'd still be a way to play cards off of the Emblem.
Make no mistake.
Alright, so let's see. We've got a couple of options here from the cards that we could play with Tybalt. Let's start with the Chieftain. And then go to the Matron. Might as well just use their cards while we're at it. Oh, they didn't like us using their cards? Okay. Well, it's a little bit of card advantage, right? That's how Red gets card advantage these days, apparently. Just, you know, always exiling off the top. Alright. We'll see you in the outro. See you at the Cool Kids Club.
So we're back with Yorion Pact. And we've played a 3-game set with the deck. Gone 2-1. And that's probably a pretty generous record for this particular deck in Mythic. I don't think it's especially competitive, but I did see a couple of things that I like about the deck. I mean, Showdown of the Skulls definitely showed what it can do in Historic. It's definitely a player, I think, Just depends on how the rest of the metagame can maybe adapt to it, or just maybe blow right by it in most cases. But maybe if it was put into an aggro shell in a little bit of a different style of deck, it could make the cut. I think in Historic, it's a very strong card, and we'll see over time how it develops. But certainly in this deck, it was a lot of fun to play. We also saw things like Yorion be pretty good in Historic. I know there's been some debate, and Arjuna and CGB have talked about this on the ArenaCraft podcast. Does bringing your deck up to 80 cards actually kind of dilute your consistency too much? I think there's a lot to be said for that, but when you have the card pool as big as Historic is, and you want to go to 80, you have a lot of options. I mean, we're definitely not hurting for choices in this deck. I think some of the flex spots that you would want to consider would be things like Elspeth's Nightmare. Is that a card that you really want to be running? I'm not sure, but it does have some nice utility, and it has a lot of targets in Historic, a lot of creatures that are really good with power 2 or less. So I don't know. These are questions, right? Maybe you want to think more carefully about Maze Mind Tome. Is that really the package that you want for a card draw type of spell? Those are, I think, some of the flex slots that I would look at. I think 2 Demonic Pact is the right number. I think 4 would be a little bit too much. You don't really want to draw this in multiples because it's going to turn into kind of the focal point of your game plan in terms of you want to blink it or you want to bring it back to your hand with Shepherd. Those kind of things you're going to need to do to make sure that you don't lose the game to the last trigger on Demonic Pact. Like every 4th turn, you have to make sure before that you are going to pick up Demonic Pact. So only 2 of them here. Seems right. Other cards that I would probably comment on that you might want to change. I'm not sure about 4 Valky. I might probably cut this to like 2 or 3. Although Tybalt was really good in the game that he was really good in. Because casting goblins against the goblins deck feels good when you're a Mardu control deck. So, I don't know. Maybe it is something that you want to keep it as a 4 of. Just try to draw it as much as you can in this 80 card deck. Which, again, as it was discussed on the ArenaCraft podcast, can sometimes lead to a little bit of consistency issues. I don't think we saw it too much in the videos the games I recorded here, but other times that I played the deck after the reset to Mythic, from Mythic to Plat 4, for example, when I was playing it in Plat 4, it went on a kind of a bad streak. I think it lost something like 3 or 4 in a row. So, again, perhaps not a deck that is competitive yet, but Showdown of the Skalds is like one more, add to the Mardu Yorion list in Historic that maybe could, with a couple of other cards here and there with some tuning, maybe could break it into a little bit more of a, tier 2 status from, wherever this deck sits currently. I know, for one, that Arjuna has been playing, I think his is a black-white Yorion version with Demonic Pact. So, there's one very successful player who has that deck in the collection. So I'm not sure where I would put Yorion in the sort of tiers of Historic decks. I don't know that it's much above tier 3 at this point, but it doesn't really matter when you're having a good time and just kind of messing around after you get to Mythic. I think that's what everybody does when they first get to Mythic, is like you get there and you're just like, oh, now I can play whatever I want. So this is kind of the idea for this particular week. So we had last week the big Mythic celebration. This week we're playing some fun games against really good competition, which is always a great time. So that's gonna, I think, about do it for this week. I wouldn't run out and craft all the parts of this deck right away, but I did have a couple of Demonic Pact lying around from draft that I've been itching to play, and so this was a nice deck to kind of bring those out, play some sweet Mardu control, and just show the other opponents. Maybe you could play something a little bit off meta every now and then and have a little bit of fun, opponents. How about some fun, huh? What happened to fun? But anyway, so I hope to be back at Mythic again soon. Currently working on the February season. So join me again next week as we continue the climb, the ladder grind. So until next time, this is Evil Empire signing off. See you next week.